public is being conditioned to look at the sky. Hypersonic missiles, stealth bombers. The entire narrative is built on kinetic threats with a high launch cost. This is a strategic misdirection. The primary vector of attack is not an explosion. It is silence. The blueprint, confirmed by analysts at RUSI and CSIS, targets the two foundational pillars of the globalized system: subsea data cables and the satellite constellation. $10 trillion in financial transactions cross these cables daily. The asymmetric leverage is absolute. The kinetic cost to neutralize a carrier strike group is billions. The cost to sever a critical data node is negligible. This is a solvency protocol. Disconnect the target from its own data, and you accelerate its collapse from within. The objective is not to kill the Western Leviathan, it is to blind it. A blind Leviathan, a state with terminal debt and unmatched military power, suddenly disconnected from its own financial nervous system, is the most dangerous entity imaginable. It will not negotiate. It will initiate its only remaining protocol, kinetic force, guaranteeing its own systemic destruction. The motive is not expansion. It is survival. A conventional war is the most expensive, kinetically demanding protocol a nation-state can execute. According to security analysts at CSIS, initiating such a high-cost operation is not a function of strength, but a launch-on warning signal of an impending domestic solvency crisis. The state's internal liabilities, economic stagnation, an unpopular mandate reach a terminal velocity. Before the system implodes, it must export the crisis. The war itself becomes a desperate, kinetic liability. This is where the strategic pivot occurs. When a state cannot sustain the kinetic cost of a symmetric conflict, it is forced to find a new vector. Weakness compels the adoption of an asymmetric blueprint. The objective shifts from territorial gain to systemic degradation of the adversary. Why spend billions on a tank when a few million in cyber assets can achieve a disproportionate result? Reports from Security Affairs confirm this protocol is active, implicating the Russia-linked Sandworm APT in attacks on critical infrastructure like Poland's power grid. This is not a random act. It is a calculated strike against a foundational economic node. The primary target of this asymmetric pivot is the adversary's core liability, its terminal debt. Forbes' analysis declares a brewing dollar crisis, framing it as an apocalyptic vulnerability. This is the financial center of gravity. Rival powers understand they cannot compete symmetrically against the dollar's reserve status, so they don't try. They execute a solvency protocol designed to accelerate its collapse. The Sandworm attack, the risk to choke points like the Taiwan Strait, the memory of the 1997 Asian financial crisis, these are not separate events. They are coordinated, low-cost attacks on confidence, supply chains, and infrastructure, all designed to trigger a cascading failure in the Western financial system. This blueprint is designed to weaponize the West's own economic leverage against itself. By attacking the periphery, the power grids, the shipping lanes, the currency's credibility, the objective is to force a liquidity crisis at the core. The mathematical certainty is that when a nation's financial system reaches zero leverage, its only remaining policy tool is kinetic force. The solvency protocol is engineered to make that final escalation the self-destructive act of a collapsed financial empire. The kinetic cost curve has been inverted. According to analyses from institutions like the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, the economic model of conventional warfare is now obsolete. A $5 million main battle tank can be neutralized by a $500 FPV drone. This is a 10,000 to 1 leverage ratio. This is not warfare, it is asset liquidation. This phenomenon is known as the democratization of violence. The barrier to entry for projecting lethal force has been lowered to the cost of consumer electronics. For an adversary executing a solvency protocol, this is the primary attack vector. Every destroyed tank is not a tactical loss. It is a multi-million-dollar liability removed from the balance sheet, accelerating the cascade toward a national solvency crisis. The objective is not to win on the battlefield, but to bankrupt the opponent by forcing them to defend against mathematically indefensible economic threats. The regional instability reported on your screen is not random. It is a laboratory. These territories, from southern Africa to the edges of the Western Hemisphere, are not failing by accident. They are being utilized as gray zone staging grounds. A new vector of warfare is being tested in these proxies, not a kinetic protocol, but a solvency protocol. The blueprint is not new. It is a refinement of the 1997 Asian financial crisis, which proved that economies could be collapsed through currency and supply chain attacks alone. The modern update is the application of low-cost, high-impact probes. Security Affairs reports Russia-linked sandworms attack on Poland's power grid was exactly that. A test to measure the systemic disruption from a single point of failure. This is not warfare. It is systems analysis. These probes are executed on both digital and physical infrastructure. Analysis of risks in the Taiwan Strait, noted by freight industry sources, confirms the focus on critical maritime choke points. The objective is asymmetric leverage. To find the minimum kinetic cost required to trigger a maximum global liquidity shock. A targeted disruption at a single port or strait is designed to metastasize into a systemic solvency crisis for the insurers and financial backers of global trade. The data from these gray zone laboratories, a power outage in Eastern Europe, a port disruption in Africa, a near miss in a strategic strait, is not discarded. It is fed into a predictive model. The final objective is to perfect a launch-on-warning sequence of non-kinetic events that accelerate an existing crisis of confidence in the dollar, which Forbes analysts have already termed a brewing dollar crisis. This is an accelerant designed to detonate a terminal debt structure from within. CSIS and RUSI analysts confirm the endgame is not territorial conquest. It is the elimination of the adversary's economic leverage. The final phase is a coordinated, multi-domain system shock executed via these proxies, timed to coincide with peak financial fragility. The mathematical certainty is that by engineering a solvency crisis, the target's only remaining option becomes a kinetic escalation, a final, self-destructive act confirming its own economic collapse. The launch-on-warning doctrine is a relic of a symmetric world. The protocol is simple. If early warning systems detect an incoming strategic strike, a retaliatory launch is executed before the inbound warheads can impact and destroy the arsenal. The entire mechanism is predicated on one fragile assumption, the integrity of the data. It assumes you can trust your own radar. The modern battlespace voids this assumption. This is not theoretical. Reports from Security Affairs confirm that state-level actors, such as the Russia-linked sandworm APT, have executed attacks on critical infrastructure like the Polish power grid. This is a low-cost, high-impact probe. The same vector applied to a ballistic missile. Early warning system is not a probe. It is a trigger. This creates the fog of digital war. The commander is now blind. The critical question is no longer, are we under attack? But is the system itself the weapon? Is the signal loss a simple malfunction? Or is it a deliberate cyber attack masking a decapitation strike that is already airborne? Wait, and you risk total annihilation. Launch, and you risk global escalation over a phantom. This is the endgame of asymmetric escalation. The adversary does not need to bear the kinetic cost of a first strike. CSIS analysts assess they only need to deploy a low-cost cyber weapon that forces you to make the launch decision. They weaponize your own protocol against you. The objective is to force a solvency crisis in your command and control structure, making you the agent of your own systemic collapse. The asymmetric escalation protocol does not begin with a launch on warning scenario. It begins with a calibration shot. The objective is not to destroy an asset, but to measure the systemic fragility of the target, to test the velocity of the cascade. The blueprint is already operational. Security Affairs reports confirm the Sandworm APT's successful infiltration of Poland's power grid. This was not random. It was a live fire test of the kinetic cost to economic impact ratio, a low-cost input for a high-impact systemic shock. The next calibration will not target energy. It will target velocity, the speed of goods and capital. Analysis of freight vulnerabilities, highlighted by choke point risks from the Taiwan Strait to Suez, points to the next logical point of failure: the terminal operating systems of a primary U.S. port. The calibration forecast: within the next 12 months, a major U.S. West Coast port will experience a catastrophic IT failure. The terminal operating system will suffer a complete, unrecoverable data corruption event, halting all container processing for a minimum of 96 hours. Attribution will be impossible, officially blamed on a botched system update or a non-state ransomware actor. This is not the attack. It is the measurement for the attack. It will quantify the rate of supply chain decay and its accelerant effect on the terminal debt crisis. It is a data-gathering operation to finalize the timing of the solvency protocol.